Hey folks, it's Marvin Cash, the host of The Articulate Fly, and we're back with another Western North Carolina fishing report with Dale Collins of Tuckaseegee Fly Shop. How you doing, Dale?
Doing great, Marvin. Unpacking after a trip and sitting on the deck eating some Cool Ranch Doritos.
Oh, well, there you go. You have an IPA in your hand?
Yeah, right beside me.
Well, there you go. What's the flavor today?
Man, we're on some Innovation Brewing Spaceman Pale Ale.
Oh, well, there you go. Well, I took a look at your weather like I always do when we were talking before we started recording, and you're going to get your kind of first bump of probably 90-degree weather this season. What are you seeing on the water?
Well, it's interesting. The creeks they're great. We had a 48 degree this morning, 48 degree low this morning. That's fantastic. On the creeks, that water is going to be, in the mid 50s by lunch and maybe peaking 60 in the afternoon, just in time to cool off. But so the creeks they're going to weather this heat wave fine. What comes into play is the tuck. So Duke Energy's been doing a really odd generation for what they've been doing over the last few years, where they're doing like a 12 a.m. to 6 a.m. East Fork. So what that means in the Webster section is, by lunchtime, it's completely, it's 74 CFS by noon. And so we're going to go through the hottest part of the day with the shallowest water. And what that does is that heats the tuck up. And then they kick in another generation at night, and that cools it off for sure. But that warm water, every day there's a warm water wave coming down the Tuckaseegee. And so the timing of that hits Bryson City, delayed harvest, around 1 or 2 o'clock. So we're seeing the bite really shut off with some warmer water hitting down there around 2 o'clock. And so we're starting our float trips pretty early. And then, about time it starts getting uncomfortable in the boat, we're getting to the ramp and we're kind of calling it a day. So, we don't want to stress the fish too much, but, for the most part, the creeks, they're fantastic. Good dry fly action right now. So no complaints.
Yeah, and I imagine, too, that warmer water, if you like chasing smallmouth, might be a little helpful.
Absolutely. And, if you go out in the afternoons, especially on the Little Tennessee, and, take your swim trunks, go do some wading for the smallmouth. And, it's just really pleasant. It's not overbearingly hot, but the water isn't, super chilly. So it's pretty fun to go out there. And especially, between 5 p.m. and let's say 8, that smallmouth bite is really good on the Little Tennessee.
Yeah, there you go. And, I don't think we'll talk again before Memorial Day weekend. And, I think people have got the fishing pattern figured out right now, but you want to kind of give folks some tips for how to avoid other people so they can fish in peace Memorial Day weekend?
Yeah, I think the key is to put in some effort and get away from it all. Look in those, NC Wildlife has some fantastic maps that cover a lot of these blue lines, and challenge yourself to fish somewhere new, and like Deep Creek and the Oconalusty are low hanging fruit, but what can you find besides Deep Creek and Oconalusty? There's so much. You throw a dart at a map in Western North Carolina, you find water. So, between Haywood, Jackson, and Swain County, it's really amazing the amount of water we have.
Yeah, there you go. And, just no pullouts, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. And we got a question from Charlie Fulla. He wanted to get your thoughts on how you approach fishing spring creeks, kind of, where, what parts of the water you fish and kind of how you do that, particularly when you fish with an indicator. Yeah.
So a lot of times on these creeks, my indicator, first of all, is probably going to be a dry fly first. So, on these blue lines, I'm just going to go this time of year, a yellow stimulator down to a midge or a Prince nymph or, pheasant tail, hare's ear kind of thing, and not be overly big because I don't want to sink that dry fly. But typically, you're going to work the tail out, mid pool, and then head of the pool in that order. So working upstream. One thing I'm really bad about, and this is kind of why I was excited to see this question come through. I'm really bad about ignoring the broken water in between the pools. So if you've got a deep pool and it's spilling over down a little drop into another pool, but let's say that drop is maybe 20 or 30 yards. and this rule goes for any low elevation creeks too, whether it's Scotts Creek or Caney Fork or Cullowhee Creek or West Fork of the Pigeon or Nantahala, any of these late harvests. These pockets in between the pullouts, like you were saying earlier, they get completely ignored. And I referenced this morning, it was 48 degrees. Well, what those trout are going to do is they're going to find their way into that shallow water where it's going to be nice and cool, and it's highly oxygenated. So a lot of times people will just fish these big, deep runs with, a head of the pool, mid pool, and tail out. But a lot of times there's fish that get overlooked in these broken pockets in between these pools. So, fish that with a dry dropper. Don't do a heavy dropper. You can catch some rocks, but I think it'll surprise a lot of folks if you challenge yourself to not walk past that spot and fish it, and then you just fish right into the next deep pool. So it's probably a really overlooked technique for fishing blue line.
Yeah, for sure. And I guess too, you want to, maybe have a bushier, more floating dry fly when you're fishing that choppy water.
That's right. Yeah. And that's why I like the stimulator. Cause it's going to ride a little higher. So absolutely. And you can get away fishing some bigger stuff in those instances. So you can throw a 12 or a 10.
Yeah. Cause you probably are normally you're fishing smaller stimulators like 14s and 16s.
It depends on the creeks and the Smokies, but these fish are so opportunistic. When they see that meaty meal floating down there, if it's a drag-free drift, they're going to go give it a look and a go.
Yeah, well, there you go. Well, listen, folks, we love questions at the Articulate Fly. You can email them to us. You can DM us on social media. You can drop them in the comments to the social media post, whatever's easiest for you. If we use your question, I will send you some Articulate Fly swag, and we will enter in a drawing for something cool from the shop at the end of the season. And Dale, before I let you hop and return to the Doritos and the IPA, you want to let folks know shop locations, hours, and all that kind of good stuff?
Absolutely. So through the summer, we're going to stay Monday through Saturday, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. And that's, of course, always open online at tuckflyshop.com. And you can find us physically at 110 Depot Street, Waynesville, and 530 West Main Street, Silva, and working a little further west, 3 Depot Street in Bryson City with the big brown trout statue out front. Of course, give us a call anytime during business hours. If you can't reach us, shoot us an email, info@tuckflyshop.
Well, there you go. Well, listen, folks, you owe it to yourself to get out there and catch a few. Tight lines, everybody. Tight lines, Dale.
You too, Marvin.